So I just saw that new Netflix film, Secret Obsession, and it was bad. Really bad. Now, I've seen my fair share of movies in my time, and because of that, I've grown somewhat of an affinity for bad movies. Dragon Ball Evolution, Mac and Me, Deep Blue Sea. These films are so bad, so over-the-top ridiculous that you can't help but just laugh at the lunacy you're witnessing on screen. But Secret Obsession isn't so bad it's good. It's not even just bad, it's thoroughly the dumbest movie I've seen all year. Now, when I first heard of this movie, I didn't think anything of it. A psychological thriller starring Wendy Wu and the Allstate guy is definitely not the worst idea Netflix has ever had, but I'd be lying if I said I was excited about another creepy obsession story. Still, I took the bait. I, in all of my infinite wisdom, sat down and subjected myself to an hour and a half of pure anguish in the hopes that it would eventually get better. It never did. So our film begins with our main protagonist frantically running away from some murderer, and instantly there are so many things wrong with this scene. For starters, our protagonist decides the best course of action while getting chased by a murderer is to get out of her car in some random secluded area and use this payphone to call 911? Why? Why not just use your cell phone to call 911? Do you not have a cell phone? Okay, now let's give her the benefit of the doubt, right? And let's just assume she didn't have a cell phone. Fine, whatever. Why not just drive to somewhere more populated? Why is your best idea to drive to some random payphone in West Bumblefuck? How did you even know this was here? Was this just a coincidence? Did you mean to drive to this payphone? I'm so confused. After failing to call 911, she looks back at her car to see the killer closing in on her, and in a moment of sheer stupidity, instead of getting back in the car and driving away like a normal person would, she decides to hide inside a public restroom? Okay, sure. We're like 2 minutes into this movie and I already cannot stand this main protagonist. So after our protagonist picks the worst hiding spot imaginable, the killer enters the bathroom and starts opening each stall door one by one for some random reason. Now you'd think with her life on the line our protagonist would just shut up for 2 seconds, but no. Instead she decides to squeal like a madman every time he opens a door. Now it's at this point I thought to myself, hey, maybe this movie will be a flashback deal, you know? Record scratch, you're probably wondering how I got here type deal. But no, somehow, some way, our hero Houdini'd her way out of the bathroom without the killer noticing, makes her way to her car, breaks her car window, fails to start her car, then gets back out of her car only to get hit by some other random car and die. God, I wish that was the end of the movie. I think the funniest part about this whole opening sequence is the killer. This dude could have easily murdered Brenda Song at any point, but he's too busy dicking around to do so. You're telling me you didn't have enough time to kill her, but you had enough time to hook up your winch to her car and start playing tug-of-war? Why did you even do that? What was the point? Are you trying to get caught? Anyway, when we next see Wendy Wu, she's in the hospital having flashbacks to the killer while being handled by the most incompetent doctors I've ever seen in my life. Now, I know nothing about the medical world, but even I know AEDs do not work over clothing.
Give me a reading. 75 pressure. Is she gonna be okay?
I don't know, man. You're the doctor. Here we're also introduced to Russell Williams, Wendy Wu's husband and definitely not the killer. After asking the receptionist at the desk about his wife, she informs him that she is currently in surgery and that he cannot see her at this time. Naturally, this prompts the 1,000-level IQ tactic of running down the hallway screaming for his unconscious wife.
Hey, Jennifer! Jennifer!
Brilliant. The movie spends some time dicking around in the hospital and then it's on to the next scene. The next major character we're introduced to here is Detective Allstate, and when we meet him, he's buying gifts for his daughter as he's called to the crime scene where Jennifer was hit by the car. This movie makes it a point to tell the audience that the events of this movie are taking place in Silverado Canyon, California, and while that seems completely incidental, just try to remember that little detail for later on, okay? He arrives on the scene, pops pills for some unknown reason that's never touched on again, and when we see him next, he's interviewing Russell at the hospital. A very pointless interview scene ensues, and then it's off to Allstate Guy's house where we learn the tragic backstory of his missing daughter. And by learn the tragic backstory, I mean get 2 throwaway lines that are supposed to evoke an emotional response.
Female, African American, 10 years of age.
You're a cop. Why can't you find your own daughter?
What? Now feel free to call me heartless, but between the retirement pamphlet and a closet full of rap presents, this entire sequence kinda made me laugh. I get what they're going for here, I really do, but this character was legit introduced 2 minutes ago and got like 10 lines in. I know nothing about this guy. You can't just insert a dead daughter and expect me to feel bad, movie. That's not how this works. Now, there are a lot of really dumb scenes in this movie, but I think this next one is easily the dumbest. We join our boy Russell back in the hospital where he's told that his wife has regained consciousness but has amnesia. Now, I hate amnesia plotlines. There's like 2 movies that figured out how to make it fun, but most of the time it's just a lazy way for writers to get out of corners they've written themselves into. But Secret Obsession has to easily take the first place prize for the dumbest amnesia conditions I've ever heard. Just listen to this.
The damage to your wife's hippocampus was fairly severe.
And what does that mean, exactly?
While she'll retain a great deal of her semantic memory, her name, her family, episodic recall is far less reliable.
Does my wife know who I am or not?
No.
What? Listen, I'm not a doctor, but I'm almost positive that's not how it works. Also, a little bit of a spoiler here, but the entire plot of the movie hinges on the fact that Jennifer has amnesia and doesn't know who she is. But according to this doctor, she'll remember things like her name and her family. So does she only remember her first name? Why does no one at the hospital try to verify her identity with her? Does she only remember that her family exists and nothing else about them? Why doesn't she try to call her family at all if she remembers them? If she remembers her family, I'm sure she'd remember her husband, right? Why is this movie so fucking stupid? So we spend some time with Jennifer and Russell as he tries to jog her memory by showing old pictures of them together and... Seriously? Listen, Jennifer, honey, I know you were just in a car accident and you hit your head pretty damn hard, but come on! Did you also become blind? This is one of the worst Photoshop jobs I've ever seen in my life, and Jennifer doesn't even think for a second something's wrong with it. It's also at this point in the movie that Russell tells Jennifer that her parents died in a fire, and again, she just believes him without any type of evidence. Like... if there's anything I can't stand in a movie, it's a dumb protagonist, but I especially cannot stand a dumb protagonist in a mystery thriller. You expect me to believe that Jennifer can figure this all out? Homegirl can't even tell when she's looking at an obviously photoshopped photo. There's a little montage showing the recovery of Jennifer in the hospital. She plays some matching games, eats some jello, and eventually goes back home with Russell. Back at the police station, Detective Allstate is conducting interviews on the people who were at the scene of the crime. Duck Dynasty here tells him that there was a white pickup truck at the scene, which gives our detective a new lead. Of course, he brings it up to another officer working the case, only for this officer to randomly bring up his dead daughter.
She either drove herself there, someone stole her car, or she was dropped off. Either way, someone else was there.
I know what week this is, Frank.
Don't.
Whatever you do won't make up for what happened.
Damn, dude. Why you gotta be such a dick? This is bad screenwriting 101. There is no way someone would randomly say something like this to a colleague, especially when he brings forth a possible lead on an open case. It's not like he was grasping at straws. What he said was very logical, but of course the movie wants to try and shoehorn in this ridiculous motive that he's doing this to somehow find closure for his missing daughter or whatever, so... fuck it? I don't know. The movie then tries to throw a red herring at you with this obviously creepy guy, but it's so poorly done that I can't help but laugh at it. Now, unless you've never seen a movie before, you know that the killer is this guy and not this guy, but the movie tries so hard to convince you that's not the case. This guy right here, we'll refer to him as Flower Guy, is probably the most confusing part of the entire movie, and that's saying a lot. At some point in the film, he comes to the hospital and brings flowers to Jennifer, claiming to be a concerned party. However, in the beginning of the movie, he is nowhere to be found, so how does he even know about Jennifer being in the hospital? It's not like she called anybody. They later try to explain this with a throwaway line that claims he was actually at the scene of the car accident, but that just raises even more questions. Was he there the whole time? Did he just happen to pull up after she was hit by the car? How does this guy fit into the plot? The movie puts so much focus on this guy that it got me thinking. Maybe this is actually her husband, or at the very least a friend of hers in the area, and that maybe he'd play a larger role in the movie. You know, help Detective Allstate get to the bottom of the case. But nope, he's legit just some random fucking guy. In fact, 15 minutes later, he's killed by Russell, so what was the point? It's not even like he's killed later in the film or something. He's killed at the 34-minute mark. That's not even halfway through. He's literally only in the movie to mildly confuse the audience for 20 minutes, and then he's killed off in the dumbest way possible. I guess he was included to show that Russell over here is a sociopath, but later scenes in the movie perfectly illustrate that, so why the big plot twist now? Now the rest of the movie is just watching the characters dick around and slowly try to piece together what the audience already knows. How are you gonna have a mystery thriller when there's no mystery, for fuck's sake? Just give me a minute. So after murdering this random dude, Russell thinks the best course of action is to poorly bury him in his own backyard because reasons. This of course leads to Jennifer seeing him in the act, and at breakfast the next morning she stares at the obviously dead body in the dirt while Russell serves her like 14 eggs or something. Why doesn't this raise Jennifer's suspicion? Fuck if I know, but she remembers she likes freshly squeezed orange juice, so it's all good. Now at this point in the film, you already know that Russell here is the killer. You also know that he's gone to extreme lengths to convince Jennifer that he's actually her husband. Photoshopping photos, creating entire backstories, killing anybody with a possible connection to the truth, the whole 9 yards. This man even went as far as to create an entire fake photo album with all the Photoshop pictures that he made. So please, explain this to me, my dear viewers. How the hell did he miss this? This isn't even like a small detail or something clever. This is just stupidity for stupidity's sake. This doesn't make Jennifer look any smarter for finding this out. If anything, it just makes Russell look like a complete dumbass. It's at this point in the movie where any suspension of disbelief you may still have will completely vanish, and if by some miracle, some godlike intervention, you survive the idiocy that was that revelation, this next scene will definitely be the end of you. So while Jennifer's busy dicking around the house or whatever, Detective Allstate over here is hot on the case. He goes to the address that Russell gives him, only to find out that it was a fake. Big shock, I know. And afterwards, he heads back to his office to overlook all his leads. This results in him calling the hospital and asking for surveillance footage of the night Jennifer was brought in. During this conversation, he also asks how Russell identified Jennifer if she never had ID, and I'll just let the movie tell you how this mastermind over here did it.
Okay, it says here in the doctor's notes that he showed some family photos and identified a back tattoo.
I don't even have words at this point. Every single human being in this film has the IQ of a fucking rock, and it's honestly so offensive that the movie thinks the audience isn't going to realize how nonsensical every single event in this movie is. You're telling me everyone at the hospital was perfectly fine with that? It didn't raise one red flag for anyone? I can't even be happy for Detective Allstate over here because all he had to do was ask for Russell's ID in the beginning of the movie and this would all be over. But no. That just makes too much sense, and if anyone in this movie used more than 3 brain cells at once, we wouldn't really have a film now, would we? So after viewing the surveillance tape, our boy finally knows what the audience has known for about 40 minutes now, and decides the best course of action isn't to put out an APB on Russell, but rather to go to some random tattoo artist in hopes that Jennifer's tattoo will give him clues as to her true identity.
Heritage, huh?
Yeah, you do them?
I can do anything you want.
This of course works, and with this newfound knowledge, he's able to correctly identify Jennifer Williams, who is now known as Jennifer Allen, and this is where the movie completely goes off the fucking rails. Remember how earlier in the video I told you to remember where this movie's taking place? Well, using his high-tech spy gear, Sherlock Holmes over here is able to find out that Jennifer shared her house with her parents in San Jose. San Jose. That is 6.5 hours from where this movie takes place, which only means one of two things. Either A, Jennifer doesn't live in San Jose and lives in Silver Canyon, California, but never changed her mailing address for some odd reason, or option number B, Jennifer lives in San Jose and for some fuck all reason drove 6.5 hours to this random fucking payphone in the beginning of the movie, which makes this scene even dumber. And I know what you're thinking, but Mikey, her and her husband moved out to Silver Canyon right after the wedding. They lived there before the events of the movie take place. And yes, my young grasshopper, I've thought about that too. But according to this guy, they left the company right after the wedding, which was 2 months ago. Now sure, let's assume they left right after the wedding and moved out. That means Jennifer had 2 months to change her billing address, but didn't, which makes no fucking sense, but sure, let's roll with it. Assuming she worked out a system with her parents that they would remail all the mail that was addressed to her, the state of her parents' corpses tell me that they were dead for a minimum of 3 weeks, which means Jennifer wasn't getting any of her mail for at least 3 weeks, and I'm to believe she didn't try to call her parents once in that time frame to see where the fuck her mail was? To make matters even worse, the police database says she's still in San Jose, which means either she somehow moved locations completely off the grid, or this was a very recent move, and in the case of it being a very recent move, when the fuck did her parents get killed? Did Jennifer just not notice her dead parents in the house? Did Russell, now known as Ryan, go into her house and kill her parents but left Jennifer alone? Nothing in this movie is even trying to make sense anymore. I've tried so hard to try and make sense of this convoluted ass timeline, but I just can't, and the more I think about it, the more my brain hurts. So anyway, back at the house, Jennifer uses her mad hacking skills and figures out the truth of who Russell really is. This causes her to try to escape, leading her to accidentally find the body of Flower Guy, which prompts Ryan to kill her. Jennifer then confronts Ryan about her husband, which causes Ryan to drug Jennifer and tie her up. He then leaves to the store to go grocery shopping or something, and this allows Jennifer to escape and explore around the house once more. While snooping around, she discovers her car. And you know it's her car because the driver's side window is still gone, and in her car, she finds her phone. Are you telling me she had her phone in the beginning of the movie and just didn't use it? Or are you saying that Ryan somehow stole her phone when he initially broke into her house and decided to put it in her car for safekeeping? Either way, it's really stupid and we're moving on. So instead of calling 911 like a normal, sane human being, she decides the best course of action is to sneak thief her way back into her room where her attempted murderer left her, fake tie herself back up, and hide the phone. Ryan somehow hears none of this, even though he's only 10 feet away from her, and all hope seems lost for Jennifer when Ryan returns home, but right before he figures out she escaped, he's interrupted by a visitor.
Hey, we're actually busy right now. It'd be great if you could come back another time.
Russell, most people think that after an accident, you'll have to pay $500 for your deductible. The truth, at Allstate, you could pay $0.
Allstate guy shows up, allowing for Jennifer to once again escape, and it seems as though he's going to save the day, but Ryan just knocks him out in one hit. This causes Ryan to pin down Jennifer and grab her ankle in what I and my girlfriend thought was going to be a brutal bone-breaking scene, similar to that one scene in The Promised Neverland, but nope. He just kind of puts her in a shitty ankle lock and makes her promise not to walk on her ankle, and he must have believed her too, because in the next scene he just leaves her in the room alone, untied, to go deal with the detective. Alone in the room, Jennifer uses this opportunity not to call 911, but to dramatically watch some random video on her phone. Now listen, Jen, I know you're confused. I understand this must be a very troubling time for you, but bitch, call 911! What the hell are you doing? So remember how earlier in the video I said Flower Guy was probably the most confusing part of this entire film? Well, I lied, because the actual most confusing part of this film is Ryan's explanation as to why he did everything he did. So after Jennifer watches her little video, Ryan comes back into the room and ties her up. He then explains who he is and why he did what he did. According to Ryan, he worked with Jennifer for years and fell in love with her from afar. Of course, his delusions fell apart when she married the real Russell, and this causes him to snap and murder everyone connected with Jennifer, including her, because if he can't have her, no one can. Okay, sure, I guess that makes sense, but what doesn't make sense is this line.
Probably would have killed you too, but
The funniest thing happened. Fate gave me a chance.
Wait, what? In the beginning of the movie, Ryan rushes to the hospital immediately after Jennifer is in the car accident. He has no way of knowing whether or not she's unconscious and could have easily been identified by her if she wasn't knocked out, but let's just assume he knew she was knocked out and was playing the part of her husband only to finish the job. What was his plan? Was his plan to walk into the hospital and just kill her without anyone noticing? I mean, with this hospital's track record, his chances of success might have actually been pretty high, but he doesn't even immediately kill her when he sees her. He instead kisses her on the forehead and presumably waits at least a day in the hospital for her to regain consciousness. At this point, he still doesn't know she has amnesia, so what the hell is he waiting around for? Another day passes and this guy is still in the hospital when he's finally told that she's regained consciousness and has amnesia. So now I ask you, at what point did this man have enough time to come up with a fake backstory, Photoshop hundreds of pictures, and move his and Jennifer's car back to his house while never raising any suspicion or getting caught? He had to go to his house at some point, evident by the photo album that he brings, but when the hell did he do that? According to the nurse, he identified Jennifer by using some family photos, so I'm assuming he was in them, right? Did Ryan do these things preemptively, banking on the fact that she might have amnesia? Because if not, did he just Photoshop himself into random pictures of her family and carry them around for fun? I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking at this point, but the constant inconsistencies in logic and timeline in this movie are so baffling that it's hard to focus on anything else. Anyway, in present day, Ryan leaves the room again, allowing Jennifer to escape her bondage again, and after knocking him out with a vase, she makes a beeline to the woods to try and get a signal to call 911, even though you don't need a signal to call 911. Allstate guy regains consciousness and easily escapes his otherwise perfect trap because Ryan is a clown and didn't even try to lock him in the freezer, and eventually they have a showdown in the woods where Jennifer murders Ryan by shooting him twice.
what you say. That you only meant well, 'cause you did.
3 months later, Jennifer and Allstate guy meet up to discuss life insurance policies, and the movie ends with Jennifer riding off into the sunset. You know the most frustrating part about this movie is that I actually feel it could have been good. For as much as I clown on this movie, I truly think all the actors gave a solid performance, and the directing isn't half bad, but the entire film is dragged down by this horrible script. Character logic barely makes any sense, and way too many things just conveniently happen because the script says so. If in the beginning of the film you find yourself asking where this is going, by the end of it you'll be asking yourself why you stuck around. I know I say this movie isn't so bad, it's good, but I lied. This movie is so horrible, it's amazing. I've watched this movie a total of 5 times now, and I gotta say, it's honestly grown on me. The sheer stupidity of events and gaps in logic is something to truly behold, and if you got an hour and a half to spare, I recommend you crack open a couple beers with your friends and go full Mystery Science Theater on this film. Oh, and I bet you're wondering where the real Russell is during this whole film. Well,
That's all, folks.
hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe and share. Sharing helps me out oh so much. And if you completely disagree with my opinion on this movie, please feel free to yell at me. My Twitter is in the description below. And that's it. I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.